Okay. So last week we did cover a range of speaking part one topics. Obviously today we're going to move on to speaking part two. But before we start, I'd like to, you know, start the ball rolling by asking you a few more speaking part one questions. Okay. And Phương, please let's talk about accommodation. Are you living in a house or an apartment?
Well, I'm living in the house with my family. It is a three houses, but my family live in the one in the center and the two on the side are we let two salons rented.
Hmm. So which room in your house is your favorite and why?
Well, I'm not quite sure actually because for most people they will opt for their bedrooms, right? But my
Hmm.
bedroom is not really my favorite room because it's pretty small and it's not very convenient for me to study and sleep in my own
So which
bedroom.
one is your favorite?
So I guess my favorite room in my house would be the kitchen because
Hmm.
here I can bake some cakes and
Thank
I
you.
can
Hmm. So is there beautiful view from where you live?
wear it not because
Hmm.
I live in the my house has just one floor.
Hmm.
So the view from my house is just the street and the supermarket which is opposite to my house.
Thank
So
you.
yeah.
Let's move on then. Let's talk about work and essentially what you do. Dai, please. Are you a student or do you work? Dai, can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you. Sorry.
Hmm. The question is, are you a student or do you work?
Um, I have been a senior right now. However, I'm also juggling both study and my work at the moment.
Hmm. So, which job would you like to do in the future?
To be honest, I find teaching is quite inspiring. Like because I can inspire students to ignite their own passions for learning something new, something that is useful for their future life. And because of that,
Hmm.
I decided to study more and improve my knowledge and also my teaching skills to
Thank
help
you.
more students in the future. Yeah.
Do you think that you will find work in other countries?
Um, it's hard for me to say whether I could find work in another country or not. But I think at the moment, English is an international language. So basically, in other non English speaker countries, teaching English would be something really, like I have to say, a gold mile. So
Thank you.
maybe.
Thank you. Let's move on then. Yung, please. Let's talk about birds. We're just doing a sort of warm-up exercise. Let's talk about birds. Are there many birds in your area, Yung?
I would say not really. Basically, because the place that I am living right now is very crowded, and I believe that this is not a suitable habitat for birds or any other animals at all.
Hmm. So, um, what types of places tend to attract birds in the country?
Well, some natural parks or just any places
Hmm.
in which there are a lot of trees, for example, like some parks in general or some zoos. So basically, they just like build that kind of places to like contain or to nurture the animals. So I think that is a suitable place.
Thank you. Let's continue. Chung, please. We're still talking about birds. Did you keep a bird as a pet when you were younger?
Yes. When I was
Mm,
small, my mom bought a bird for me so that I can keep it in our balcony. But unfortunately, it did around 2 or 3 months after I bought it.
Mm. And in your area, are there lots of birds?
Well, I think that is a no because I'm living in a city center, so it's very quiet, and I think that it's very difficult for pets to live here. So I think that it's not really like suitable for them.
Mm. Let's move on then. Here, please. Let's talk about sitting. Do you often sit for long?
Well, I think yes, because I need to do a lot of tasks during a day. Therefore, I usually sit for around 3 to 4 hours in the morning in order to fully complete on the deadlines. However, in the afternoon, I tend to go exercise or do some yoga in order to release the pressure on my shoulder or my back after
Thank
a
you.
long time.
Mm. Thank you. But then, do you feel sleepy when sitting for a long time?
I think that it depends on the situation. To be more specific, if I sit for a long time with no specific um, specific targets to do on that day, I think that it will quite sleepy because I don't know what should I do and there is no bone for me to run with it. However, if I has a lot of things to deal with, I think that it will be quite pressure and also ways that I need to keep my brains keep working and it's not really sleepy at all.
Thank you. So we have just completed that warm-up exercise, and well, I guess there are two things to say. First of all of you were able to speak at length, which was great. The second thing is that well, in terms of accuracy, I do think that there was still room for improvement. But well, that's not the purpose of this segment. We're gonna move on to like the actual focus of today's lesson, which is speaking part two. Now, in the first part, I'm gonna give you a topic for some of you, not all of you, to speak about because I need to get to certain points regarding the preparation for speaking part two. And then we're going to go through a sample answer. Again, I have some points to go through. And we're going to have a bit of time for practice with other speaking part two topics at the end of the class. Okay. For now, let me show you the topic. I'm definitely gonna make some notes. So I'm just gonna show you the topic for the sake of the screen. But I'm going to send you the topic in the chat box so that you can see what you need to talk about. In speaking part two, essentially you'll be given a topic. Typically, it requires you to describe something, right? It can be a person or a subject or an event, right? You have 1 minute to make some notes to prepare for your ideas, and then you can speak on your ideas between 1 and 2 minutes. Okay? I'm going to show you the topic. Can you see it? It's in the chat box, but I want to show you that on the screen right now. Okay. Dai, can you see the topic? One, can you see the topic?
Yeah.
Yes, I can.
Mostly in the chat box, not on the screen. Okay. Well, good luck. I'm gonna give you all 1 minute to prepare yourself. Okay. Now I want to stop sharing my screen because I need to make some notes of what you want to talk about. Remember, you can speak on this topic between 1 and 2 minutes, and you can find the full topic in the chat box. And don't worry if I stop you, that's all. Let's start with Gwen
Yeah.
and start speaking now.
Okay. So talking about a subject that I really adore. It is all the way English. Um, More specifically, ever since I was a sixth grade student, I have fallen in love with uh, listening and speaking English session on my class, especially when English is taught by a super passionate teacher. Her name is Ha, and to be honest, my English has what originally not that good, and she had helped me a lot with learning and pronunciation, and she also inspires me to study better. Talking about the thing that I learned from studying English, like I would say I not really learn that much from English, but I did learn a lot of things from English content on YouTube. Like learning English is a bridge connecting me to new horizons. Like um I also discovered new hobby regarding cars and writing newspaper for my school later. And the reason why I'm so passionate about learning English is basically it helped me to reach to new level. Like I have become more confident, and I could confidently speak I could confidently speak with a foreigner, and I think that
Thank
English.
you. Thank you. But then, mm, are you still, learning that subject?
Yeah, I've been learning English since I was sixth grade student, so yeah, learning it right now.
Thank you. Next person, bum 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 bum. Ian, please. Remember, you can speak about this topic between 1 and 2 minutes, and don't worry if I stop you. You should start speaking now.
Well, the first subject that is sprang to my mind when you gave me this topic is literature. The reason why I truly love it because first of all, it's the teacher. Her name is Miss Ngọc. I haven't truly loved learning with teachers as much because I think that they are quite biased the students a lot, and I not really into about any subjects in the past, especially when I was in secondary. However, the way that she taught me truly inspired me and ignited my passion in literature. And there are three reasons for that. First of all, I think that literature is more than just memorizing about the poems and the words. In any novels, it's like a passport for me to exploring the world through a lot of new characters in each novel, and I can truly immerse into that world. Moreover, I think that from the fascinating textbooks, I can truly infuse a new culture and also the ideology of every authors. And that is the way that I learn about the new perspectives and really expand my horizons. And from the time that I learned literature, I noticed that I become much more patient and I could sympathize with others circumstances. And that's the reason why I know that from that lesson and from that subject, I have changed myself positively. And that's the reason why I love it a lot.
Thank you. Well then, are you still you're studying something related to literature now?
Well, I think that After learning literature for a long time, around 6 to 7 years, and the gift lessons, I truly gave up on learning that lesson because I didn't feel any passion from that lesson and also the teachers that taught me. Therefore, I didn't continue on
Thank you.
studying subject.
One last person. Hmm, Phương, please.
Okay, so I'm learning to be a teacher now, a math teacher to be more specific, but I do not really enjoy the math lessons at school. The subject that I really, really love is psychology. So in this subject, we learned about the ways students uh, learn and observe knowledge, how to make them feel motivated, how to make them feel concentrated on our lessons and about the psychology of the parents too. And I really love this subject not because of the teacher, because she made me do a lot of homework and teamwork at school. But I love this subject because it helped me a lot when it comes to real life experience. Like I can use the knowledge that I learned in this subject to teach my student more effectively. And I guess I got the highest mark in this subject too. So I really enjoy and I guess it is the subject that I love most during my university life.
Hmm. But then in the future, will you study more things related to psychology?
Well, I would love to, but I don't think so because I think it's enough. Like
Thank
the
you. Thank you. So everybody, you can hop on the file that I have sent in the chat box. Again, I need to keep this segment brief. Because we have some content to go through um, in the later parts of the class. Okay, let me show you the screen. Hmm. Okay. One then, would you consider this topic to be easy, normal, or difficult, and why?
Well, I consider this topic to be not that easy, but not that difficult. It is in the middle, intermediate.
No. Okay. And here, same question, easy, normal, or difficult?
I think that it's is intermediate because it's hard for me to deliver my ideas during this
Hmm.
because I think it's quite uncommon topic. Yeah.
Uncommon. Um, to each his own, I guess. And Phương, then you were talking about psychology. Would you consider this topic to be difficult?
Yes, I think because I can oh wait, it is not very difficult, but I made this difficult for me
Hmm.
because I can offer another easier subject to describe.
Hmm. I agree. You could have opted for a more streamlined approach, but well, you went off the beaten track and you gave it your best shot, I guess. Okay, some notes here. Well, in general, I was able to, understand everything that you guys said. And well, obviously, Phương went off the beaten track to talk about psychology. And it's not that, it was a difficult, I'm not quite sure if it was a difficult subject to describe, but essentially instead of talking about common subjects at high school, she went for psychology, which was something that she learned in the first year at college, right? Yeah.
Yes,
Mm. Anyway, so for Guan here, a subject that I adored Well, in theory, this is a very powerful synonym of enjoy, but I don't think that I've ever heard anyone saying that, they adore a subject. It's a bit weird to say that. You can say that, it's a subject that I liked, a subject that I was fond of, a subject that I was keen on, right? So essentially, the alternatives that I have provided you with are just more natural. In my classes, yeah. I guess in would be a better preposition. Passionate and she and she. Essentially, during this speech, I felt like you were going back and forth in terms of accuracy when it comes to the s and sh, sounds. Like passionate, she, not she, not she. It's she and passionate, right? And you were able to, hit the nail on the head a couple of times, but then, you missed the mark on other occasions. So can you pronounce these two words again? Passionate.
Passionate.
No, not the sir, it's sh. Passionate.
Passionate.
Okay, one more time.
Passionate.
No, one more time.
Passionate.
Not quite there. One last time.
Passionate.
No, it's still too sir. It's more passionate.
Oh, okay. Passionate.
The second word, she.
She.
No, she.
She.
Good. For some reason, I felt like you were saying he, although there was a sh at the beginning. One more time. She inspired me to learn English.
She inspires me to learn English.
Not quite there. She inspired me to learn English.
She inspired me to learn English.
Okay. So, well, from my observation, Gwen, I think that you can enunciate, these sounds correctly, but it's not, an autopilot process yet, I think, because you still go back and forth between the s and the sh. And out of the 6 attempts that you did with the word passionate, the best effort was actually the second try. The other attempts were either incorrect or not quite there yet, right? Discovered new hobby. It should be hobbies. There must be an S at the end. Okay. Okay, for Hyun, the reason I really loved it because, well, I feel like, Hyun, you and Phương somewhat have the same issue when it comes to punctuation. The reason I really loved it was because, and Phương, you also not in the speech, but like when I asked you the follow-up question, you also said yes, I think because like if you deliver that sentence like that, I wouldn't be able to tell where a full stop or a comma is, right? So you two need to work on your punctuation. The reason I really loved it was because, right? So here and say it again.
The reason why, the reason I really love it was because,
Sure. They biased the students a lot. What do you mean by that? Did you say biased?
yeah, I say bias, like the way that they treat the students unbalancedly, like that
Biased?
they, yeah,
I mean, the word bi so bias. Well, a bias is an unfair belief.
yeah,
Biased. But how would you make sense of that word in its context? What
like
exactly were you
in the
trying to
past,
say? Huh.
like in the past, I didn't like teachers a lot, especially in primary school, because the way that they treated their students unbalancedly, like they
Oh, okay.
biased the,
So, okay, sure, sure. I've got it. So, I think you can say that they played favorites, right? Hold on.
mm,
to play favorites. Let me check. Favorites. Yeah, to play favorites. So essentially, your teachers played favorites, and she showed preferential treatment. She gave preferential treatment to some students, right? Not bias. The word bias here means an unfair notion. I don't think that I have ever seen it as a verb. Is it in a verb?
Yeah,
Well,
I
you need to
don't
check
think.
that. You need to
Yeah,
check that
okay.
because it sounded bizarre to my ears. You can say, yeah, because literature teachers tended to play favorites. Yeah, say that. Literature teachers tended to play favorites.
Literature teachers tended to play favorites.
Okay. Memorizing about poems. It's a very common mistake. It's memorizing poems without the about.
Memorize Memorizing poems.
Okay. Every author with the S, oh, an amateur mistake again.
Yes.
Um, and learning that lesson, it was so out of context because I was asking you about a subject, right? So your answer should have focused more on the subject than lessons. A subject can have like many lessons. So you could have just focused on the subject. And also for a follow-up question, don't drag things out. The examiner is going to stop you after like two sentences, right? Okay. Now for Phương, I do have to say that like right off the bat, I felt like you were off topic because you said the subject I really love is psychology. Like, I guess you can make a case for yourself by saying that, well, I hated everything that I did in high school. So now I'm going to talk about a subject that I'm really enjoying at my university. I guess you could say that, but it's also very risky, right? And all I'm saying is that I thought that you were off topic. You could have said the subject I really loved with the D at the end. I really loved was psychology. And then, along your speech, you kind of switched to a different tense. You said, I loved it because it helped me a lot. So everything was pushed back to your past tenses, right? So I have a question here. Are you actually talking about a subject? Were you talking about a subject that you enjoy in the past? Like before college, or a subject that you were enjoying, you know, in college?
Mm, we all know that I learned this subject in the first year, and I'm in year 2 now.
Okay,
So,
okay. But then I do think that if you want to deviate from the original topic, you have to be very clear with regard to why you're doing such a thing, right? You didn't really explain it to me because you said psychology in present tense. So I think that, okay, so you're enjoying the subject now, right?
mm, okay.
And also
So
you only rejected mathematics. You said that you really hated the subject in high school, but then there were other subjects. So why didn't you
now,
talk about these subjects? You
when
understand?
I read when I read the topic, I thought about subjects that I'm studying in university. So yeah.
Um, but then that's a misconception then, because school often refers to at the very best high school. That's it. You cannot group, ordinary schools and colleges and universities, right?
I guess so.
Hmm. So look, if you want to, now this is an example for, all of you here. If you see a topic like this, um, well, some of you may have more conventional approaches like One and Hien. And by that I mean you guys can actually just choose a subject that you actually studied when you were, a high school student or a primary school student, essentially, during that particular time frame, right? So you can go with that, very mainstream approach, and that's fine as long as you hit the nail on the head with regard to the description of the subject. Some of you might feel like you hated the 12 years of like normal education, and then you want to talk about the things that you learned in college. That's fine. But then you have to explain to your examiner very, very clearly that, well, I do have to say that I disliked virtually all the subjects that I did when I was, still like a student at high school. So I have to say that I've only really liked one subject that which I did when I was a sophomore at my university. So I think I want to talk about that today, right? So you have to be very clear with the examiner with regard to why you're not talking about a subject that you studied at school, as in, you know, high school, secondary school, and primary school, right? And you want to talk about, a subject or a course that you did in your university, that's fine. But then you have to explain because like when you read questions, there are more direct ways to, understand them. And examiners oftentimes just expect you to, navigate topics in a simple and, obvious way. Right? Okay, that's all. Well, that was it for the comment section. Have you got any question for me? Hello, Miss Flo. Tum, any question?
No thầy.
Oh, no.
No. Okay. Now we're gonna move on to today's lesson. Um, Obviously, we're gonna talk about speaking part two, and now, first of all, I want to introduce you to a few topics, well, four topics representing four groups. I mean, some of you here have already done these four groups. Some of you are completely new to the game. But essentially, when it comes to speaking part two topics, well, there are oftentimes like 50 topics that speaking forecasts tend to feature. If you don't know what speaking forecasts are, essentially like every 4 months, there is a collection of topics that are likely to be given when you take the speaking test. So, the document that you see is a speaking forecast. And they're often around 50 topics per 4 months. I'm not quite sure why they decide to rotate topics around in that particular rhythm, but sure, whatever. Right? And we have four groups of topics here. And the first one then, which category does it belong to? Mm, Nhung, please.
People.
Mm. All right. Describe a friend who became successful. Mm. Do you remember a topic related to this group that you have done?
Like someone who who can express their
Mm.
feeling well.
Someone who can express their feelings well. Okay. Now, next then, describe, you continue. Describe a park where you go with your family.
Place.
A place. Right. A park. We have never done this topic, right?
Yes.
Oh, yes. I do have to say, I really hate topics like this one. It's oddly specific. And I bet that the speaking parts three questions for this particular topic are demonic. Okay, can you give me another example of a topic about places?
Maybe a foreign country that you would like to visit in the future.
Sure, nice. A coffee shop that you would like to visit, a coffee shop that you have visited, a coffee shop that you would like to visit again with your friends. Okay, next then, um, down here, Chung, please. Describe a time when you took a day off from work or school,
Describe an event.
an event. Okay, sure. And anything else? So give me another example of another event, I guess. An event or an occasion.
Mm, um, describe
A time when you searched for information on the
internet
internet, right? Okay, and the last topic here,
object.
object. Nice. Hmm. Well,
And verb.
these are the four basic topics. We have some of the less common topics with the most prominent one that has recently been reported being describe a traditional story in your country. Hmm, this question is oddly difficult, don't you think? Miss Fu, when you see this topic, what is the first thing that springs to mind? Except for, well, I might have to retake the test.
Um,
What's the
a
first thing that you
traditional
think about?
story.
Hmm.
I just think about some fairy tale,
Hmm.
or for example, Châu Cao or
Wait, hold on, we have a story, we have a fairy tale about Chiu Gao. Really?
yeah,
Okay.
or cái gì tự nhiên quên nhỉ? Bao táo. Cái gì?
Gods.
Kitchen gods.
Hmm. So the first thing that springs to mind for you are essentially fairy tales. Okay. Next then, Dai, what you think about when you see this topic?
The very first one would be the story of Lucky Money.
Hmm. Right. And what do you plan to talk about?
Well, I would say it's not only a traditional story, but it has become an important tradition in Vietnam. And the first one I would tell about the story, Lucky Money wrapped in a red envelope would help to protect the children from something negative, such as monsters or something like that.
Question. Will you keep the story brief or will you really go into the details?
Uh, I would keep the story brief, but still like three sentences, at least three sentences.
Okay, so essentially you would just encapsulate some of the basic content of the story and then you move on with the tradition part.
Yes.
Hmm, very nice strategy. Okay, one more opinion then. Um, what else is here? Miss Chang is not here. These people. Anyway, Miss Foot already, well then, Hian, what do you think? What will you talk about? A traditional story.
Well, I think the traditional story in Vietnam is always about the war, like Independence Day or Điện Biên Phủ. Yeah, I think like
I wonder if it's gonna make the cut for this topic. Traditional story. I feel like somewhere down the line, the examiner is gonna be able to work out that it's a factual story, and I don't think that it, falls, in the category of traditional stories. Perhaps something else. Well, for me, I think about again like folklore stories like Lạc Long Quân and Âu and Tấm Cám, right? Yeah, and that's it for me. apparently I do know stories, but I'm not that passionate about literature, especially the traditional literature. But I do have to say this is a deceptively challenging topic. What are you going to talk about? A traditional story. But then I do think that Dai's approach is wonderful. Yeah. You can try to keep the story brief because even though you think that, well, you have already got an idea for a story, to actually describe that story in a way that is, fluent and eloquent, it can be quite a challenge. I don't think that I'll be able to hit the ground running with, this type of topic, to be honest. Right? So if you can shift the focus to something else that you can talk about, in a more fluent way, then that's what you should do. But anyway, sure, just some food for thought. Let's move on then. At this point, I feel like all of you have already known how to prepare for speaking part two, right? And I'm just gonna give you some notes here. Here are the notes prepared by a candidate. Can you guess what the speech will be about? And I'd like you all to try speaking about this topic using the given notes. Okay. So, um, one, please. In your opinion, what will the candidate talk about?
Hmm, I think it's about a teacher that you really love or something like that.
What are you talking about? This is um the topic of a subject that you enjoyed studying at school. So which subject
Oh,
will the person talk about?
it's about science.
Yeah. Okay. Now you all have 1 minute to try to wrap your head around these notes and then try to connect the dots. So it's quite a challenge because these are not your ideas. Good luck. You all have 1 minute. Ah, Buplum is wickedly good. Hmm. Okay. Before you start, let me give you a bit of help. I'm not quite sure if it's gonna mean anything to any of you, but just in case you need to use phrases and words to move from one point to another, you can try using some of the connected words that I'm showing you. For instance, you can start by saying, so the person I'm going to talk about is, or the subject I'm going to talk about is. Um, as for what the subject is about, right? Moving on to, when I started learning this subject, and I guess, the reason for why I enjoyed this subject at school was because, right? So obviously these connected words are not, specifically hammered out for the topic that you're given, but they can be very useful. Anyway, let the interrogation begin. You have 2 minutes to just put your luck to the test. Okay. Now, let's start with the first victim. Nhung then.
Well, this topic immediately makes me think about science subject. Like many years ago, when I was still a primary school student, I first had a chance to study this subject. But at that time, as a kid, I thought that it was not important at all because, yeah, I didn't pay attention to education. I just wanted to play at that time. However, later then, when I grew up and I came to high school, and then I could learn more about this subject. So that was when I found it interesting. Maybe because thanks to my teachers who were full of personality, they were all very supportive to help me understand that kind of subject and also like, explore many interesting things. Um, but however, I couldn't really hit the crowd running at first. Those subjects related to science were very complicated. But again, thanks to like support from both teachers and like other classmates, I could uh hit the nail on the head after some months. So I think that I could apply science knowledge in my real life. So that was the reason why I really enjoyed that subject.
Oh, sorry. Yum, I was making a very long speech praising your skills, but apparently I was muted the entire time. You didn't hear anything, right?
Yes.
Dang it, man. Look, what I was saying to myself apparently was that you were able to speak for 1 minute and 30 seconds using other people's ideas. So that was a really good run, girl. But then I need another victim. Miss Foot, please. Remember, you can speak about this topic between 1 and 2 minutes, and don't worry if I stop you. You should start speaking now.
Um, when I was a kid, I didn't pay much attention to science because I think that this is not an important subject. At that time, teachers only focus on the main subjects like Vietnamese and math. So they usually skip a science lesson to force us to finish all the math and Vietnamese exercises to prepare for the exam. However, things have been changed since I moved to high school. Um, and the big reason comes from my teachers, as the science teachers was full of personality. Um, Although at first I didn't hit the ground running, and I felt that science is quite complicated. However, teachers were always teacher brought us um, so many creative and engaging lessons with experiment and um, real materials, so that uh, after a few months, I felt that I hit the nail on the head, and I felt that I was really excited to wait for a science lesson, and um, thanks
Thank
to
you.
that, yeah.
Thank you. So you were able to speak for 1 minute and 50 seconds. And that was a good run, by the way. Although I think that somewhere along the way, you sort of, struggled a little bit with developing ideas on your own. As far as like connecting the dots using the words given to you, I thought that you were pretty good. Yeah, thank you. Okay, one last person. Well, obviously it's you, Chung. Hmm. Remember, you can speak about this topic between 1 and 2 minutes, and don't worry if I stop you. You should start speaking now.
So today I would like to talk about a subject that I have been lacking on, and it is science. Well, when I was a kid, I honestly thought that it wasn't an important subject. So I didn't really like pay concentrate on studying science. But when I moved to high school, I started to realize the importance and how useful science is. Well, at first, I didn't I'm I didn't hit the ground running because the topic the lessons are quite complicated. Um, and it was very stressful for me at the time. But after some months, I finally um hit the nail on the head. Well, I think that it is because this mostly because of my teacher, whose name is he is very he's very energetic and full of personality, and he always tried to deliver the lessons as easily as he can. So it's very simple for me to um understand his lessons. And well,
Mm. Okay, good. Well, you were able to speak for 1 minute and also 50 seconds. But well, I did think that you were able to connect the dots, but I didn't really like your pronunciation because again, I for some reason I feel like I'm starting to beat the same dead horse again. But I feel like a lot of times your pronunciation was just unclear. It was very unclear. And it started with the pronunciation of just certain words. I hit the nail on the head. Like all of the words were pronounced in a like half-hearted way. Like, it was not head, it was head. Like hit the nail on the head. So it should have been a full hit. Hit the nail on the head. It was more like for you something like hit the nail, not even nail, it's nail on the head, right? So most of the words were just half-hearted. And chunking was also completely right in a way. Like you didn't stop at the right moment. Yeah, so even though you were able to connect the dots, I do have to think that Jung, you still need to really stay focused and pronounce words more clearly. We've talked about this. I just don't feel like, my comments and advice are, getting to you. Not quite sure what's going on here. And as for Jung, you did a good job, but for some reason you kind of butchered the word subject. It's ject, not jet. What went wrong? Can you say that again? Subject?
Subject.
Yeah, can you say that again? Just for confirmation.
Subject.
Okay. So clearly you know how to pronounce this word, but during this particular speech, you said subject, jet, just jet. So you write that word. And yeah, so that's it for Nhung. For Miss Foot, again, my comments are that you were able to connect the dots very nicely with the words that are provided to you. But when it came to like freestyle improvisations, he sort of fumbled the ball, and there were lots of pauses, right? Anyway, so would you consider like these notes to be helpful, considering your performance? Miss Fung, do you think that the notes here are helpful for you to construct a speech?
Yeah, it is quite useful for me because when I read this topic, I had no ideas
Hmm.
to talk about.
You had no idea what to talk about. So, do you think that the notes here, in a way, made sense? Like, could you make sense of the words here?
Mm, yeah.
Yes, right. You were able to speak for like 1 minute and 50 seconds. Although I do think that 20 seconds were wasted on like random pauses. But still, you were able to speak for a solid 1 minute and 30 seconds, just using the words, the ideas provided to you. right? So that was a pretty good run. So I guess the verdict here is that, these notes are pretty helpful. And when you prepare for speaking part two, I do think that you need to make notes in a way that would benefit you, right? So you have 1 minute to think about what you want to say. And my recommendation is, to write down some of the words that would point you towards the kind of content that you know how to speak very well, right? If you've been with me for a while, you know what I'm talking about, right? And speaking of that, we're going to go through um, a very important criterion that is used to assess your speaking performance, which is pronunciation. I like one person to read band 6 and one person to read band 8. So band 6, Tài, please, and band 8, Miss Hiền. Sorry, not Hiền, Quân.
Okay. Use a range of phonological features, but control is variable.
It's
Chunking is generally
variable. It's variable.
variable. Okay, thank you. Variable. Chunking is generally appropriate, but rhythm may be affected by a lack of stress timing or a rapid speech rate. Some effective use of intonation and stress, but this is not sustained. Individual words of phonemes may be mispronounced, but this causes only occasional lack of clarity. Can generally be understood throughout without much effort.
Continue. Quân.
Use a wide range of phonological feature to convey precise and subtle meanings. Can sustain appropriate rhythm, flexible use of stress and intonation across long terrain, despite occasional lapses. Can be easily understood throughout. Accent has minimal effect on intelligibility. Intelligibility.
Okay. Well, as you can see here, when it comes to pronunciation, the first thing that is taken into consideration is, well, a range of phonological features. So, well, that covers virtually everything, right? A range of phonological features. So, well, they encompass, first of all, the pronunciation of individual words, stressed syllable in that in your specific words, and then we have ending sounds, and then we have and then we have um oh, okay, speaking in chunks of words. What else? Oh, connected speech, like thank you very much, not thank you, more like thank you very much. Hold on, I need to let out some gas. Okay. Connected speech. What else? Connected speech. Oh, speed, right? And intonation, like where you should go up, where you should go down. And last but not least, like the entire time you speak, you probably will be able to establish your own rhythm, right? So yeah, a range of phonological features. And this is the first aspect of the pronunciation criterion. But if you want to get like band 6, the only thing you need to do is to display a wide range of phonological features. So this is for band 6. The more the merrier, essentially. But if you want to get a higher score, you need to maintain a high level of accuracy, right? So you should be able to sustain your pronunciation features over a long period of time, right? And essentially, the more you're able to maintain this level of accuracy, the more likely you're going to score, a higher band like 7, 8, and 9. Yeah, that's all. Any question? Tài, any question? Phương, any question?
Dạ không.
No. Okay. Phương, any question?
Không ạ.
Okay. So I think that when it comes to pronunciation, it's not necessarily a secondary criterion, but at the same time, it's not as important as fluency. It's a complementary aspect of fluency, in my opinion, right? Because obviously, if you want to get a high score, as you have learned, you must be willing to and able to speak at length effortlessly. That does not mean that you have to, keep on speaking without any pauses, because that not possible for us humans. We still need to breathe and a bit of time to connect the dots every once in a while, right? But the way to, develop ideas when it comes to, speaking in general is to, think in complete thoughts. And as you speak, you deliver these complete thoughts in sensible chunks of words, right? Or, according to this band descriptor, meaningful utterances, right? And as you speak, obviously there are various aspects of English pronunciation that you need to not pay attention to, but display. And by that I mean, for lower levels, you're taught to, pronounce words, individual words, and then you're taught to stress on certain syllables like generation, right? Ending sounds like diseases or disease. Um, what else? So on and so forth, right? And then you were taught to, speak in groups of words instead of, just one or two words at a time. Like, there's nothing wrong with just saying one or two words at a time, but that rhythm is essentially an indication of the fact that you're not able to form complete thoughts. So you need to, think about one or two words at a time, right? So don't abuse that rhythm. Connected speech is also an inherent aspect of English that Vietnamese does not possess. Okay. And for a higher level, if you had to think about, how you should pronounce certain words, that's probably not a good sign of a high score. So when you practice, I do think that a lot of times you can only improve by, pushing yourself past your current limits. So at the moment, if you're only able to speak for about 5 minutes, you should probably try to, just have a monologue with yourself in your room for as long as you can. We can start with 5 minutes and then 6 minutes and then 7 minutes. And then before you know it, you can, just, keep on speaking for like an hour, about a certain topic, right? And as you speak, you definitely need to pay attention to the accuracy of the way that you pronounce words. Okay. Anyway, so here's a trick for you to establish a sense of rhythm as you speak. Essentially, in a sentence, there are important words, right? And when it comes to important words, what you need to do is stressing them, right? So for instance, let's say one, two, three, four are the words that represent important pieces of information, right? What you do is that you stretch and stress these words. So by stretching, I mean you elongate your pronunciation like this, right? Instead of one, you say one, and then two, and then three, and then four, right? And for less important, oftentimes grammar words, you can go through them at a slightly faster pace, but they must be there. They must be there. So for instance, instead of saying n, you say n, not end, right? Normally you pronounce the word as end, but you just say n in this case. So that one and two and three and 4, right? And for better fluency, you go something like 1 and 2 and 3 and 4, right? I'm doing something with my hands here, as you can see. I'm trying to visualize the changes in, the length of certain words, although I do look kind of crazy doing this, like a monkey, But you get the point, right? And when you move to the third sentence, you have more less important words like 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. So you don't say and you say and a, right? 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. And then, 1 and then a 2 and then a 3 and then a 4. So on and so forth, right? So I just need one person to give it a go because I feel like all of you can sort of wrap your head around what I'm talking about now. And just one person to do an example, and then we're gonna go through the first part of the sample answer. Um, Phương, please take your pick. Which sentence do you want to do?
Uh, I guess the third one.
Okay, knock yourself out.
1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. Is
Not
that
quite there
fine?
yet. Not quite there yet. One and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. And it's more like and not and.
And 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4.
Or you might want to lower
4.
your pitch a little bit because I feel like us Vietnamese tend to speak in a slightly higher pitch than English speakers. Like I naturally lower my pitch as I speak. So when I pick up the phone call, nobody has called me miss in English, right? When I talk to someone in English through the phone, they have never called me miss. But whenever I talk to them in Vietnamese, I say hello, right? They always say, Miss, come down to fetch your parcel or something like that. Anyway, what I'm trying to say is that you might want to lower your pitch just a little bit, like 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4. Come on,
Okay. 1 and a 2 and a 3 and a 4.
4, 4.
4.
Yeah. Okay, cool. Now let's apply that in the first part of the sample answer here. Mm. Bum, 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 bum. Chung, please. Just one or two sentences. That should be fine. The first one. So,
So the subject I'm gonna talk about is science.
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 One more time. So, the subject I'm going to talk about, right? Talk about. So, you go up
Subject I'm gonna
at
talk
talk,
about
but that's not the word you stress. So, the subject I want to talk about is science. Science. You stretch the word out. One more time.
So the subject I'm gonna talk about is science.
Continue.
To be honest, when I was in primary school, I wasn't too fond of subject, as it wasn't kind of like an important one.
An
And
important one. It wasn't kind of like an important one. So one more time. To be honest, to be honest. So there's a rhythm that is very common in English. You go down and you go up. To be honest.
to be honest,
Yeah.
when I was in primary school, I wasn't too fond of this subject, as it wasn't kind of like an important one.
Okay. So to be honest, when I was in primary school,
I
was
wasn't
there a stress
school.
on any of the words there? To be honest. So honest is stressed. When I was in, that was pretty fast, right? When I was in primary school, so you might want to stretch these words out. When I was in primary school, I wasn't too fond. I wasn't too fond of this subject. Too fond of this subject. Too fond. Too fond. I wasn't too fond of this subject. And it wasn't like as it wasn't kind of like an important one. Hmm. Okay. And one more sentence. And I spend the bulk of
time. And
yeah.
I spent the bulk of time on literature and mathematics.
And I spend the bulk of time, and I spend the bulk of time, right? And I spend the bulk of time on literature and mathematics. But in high school,
But in high school, things changed a lot because I had to choose three subjects which I would focused on to prepare for my university entrance exam. Focus on.
but in high school, things changed a lot. Things changed a lot, right? So things changed a lot because I had to choose three subjects. I had to choose three subjects. Oh, okay. So choose is naturally stretched out because essentially after this, there was a new bit of information, right? Because I had to choose three subjects, which I would focus on, which I would focus on to prepare for my university entrance exam. Okay, the whole sentence again, and then move on.
But in high school, things changed a lot because I had to choose three subjects which I would focus on to prepare for my university entrance exam.
So I chose science.
So I chose science simply because I thought it would be easier for me to work with numbers than endlessly long literature extracts.
Hmm. The last bit was horrible, because I thought it would be, oh, sorry, not horrible. Oh, okay, I've turned over a new leaf. I'm a positive person. Let's do the last bit again. So I chose science simply because I thought it would be easier for me to work with numbers rather than, endlessly long literature extract. One more time.
So I chose science simply because I thought it would be easier for me to work with numbers than endlessly long ex- than literature
Endlessly long, then endlessly long literature extracts.
than es- than endlessly long literature
No, extracts.
extracts.
Hmm. Okay.
Then
Just the last sentence, and then I'm gonna need someone to repeat the whole thing.
so I choose science simply because
Chose, not choose. Chose.
so I chose science simply because I thought it would be easier for me to work with numbers than endlessly long literature extracts.
Literature, not literature. It's literature.
Literature extracts.
No, 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 no. Chung, again, you're using your literacy to dissect the word. It's not literature, it's literature. Repeat. Don't
Lit-
think about it. Your pronunciation is awful anyway. Ugh. Sorry, not awful. It's better for you to imitate and copy.
literature.
Yeah, one more time. Literature.
Lit-
Literature.
literature.
Yes. So hard. You're being a positive person. Oh, Miss Phil, you're working at a international school, if I'm not mistaken.
Uh, it's just a private school with different programs. One
But is it more Vietnamese or international?
is more Vietnamese because international program has higher tuition.
Oh,
So
okay.
yeah.
Sure. Well then, like, do you have to stay, cheerful and positive all the time at school?
We try to,
Uh,
but sometimes we need to be strict to
mm,
yeah to require students to follow the rules.
mm. Do you have foreign colleagues, like teachers from English speaking countries?
English speaking countries? No, because
Oh,
actually we don't work closely because we have different TA in foreigner teachers classes.
okay.
Yeah.
Oh, so there are international teachers at your school, but you're not that close with them.
Yeah, we just discuss about the students because we teach the same classes.
Okay, well then,
Yeah, but we don't
um,
teach
sure. Well
it.
then, do you think that they tend to be very positive at school? Like they tend to be very cheerful and energetic? Or are they more like us, strict and sort of gloomy?
Most of them are quite okay.
Mm.
Yeah. We have no problem when discussing and co-working.
Okay, sure. Well, then I have to say, Miss Fook, your answers gave me nothing. It gave me no information whatsoever with regard to whether or not it's hard for you to stay positive at school. But anyway, essentially, like I have students doing like international programs, and for some reason, they always find the way that I navigate my classes somewhat out of the ordinary because what they are exposed to at school is essentially, just positive vibes from teachers, and then there comes me with all of my criticisms and harsh words and
Hmm?
you know all of these things. So I dare to say it's really hard to stay positive. I don't know how foreigners do that. I have a tendency to complain. That's all.
I think that
Okay.
foreigner
Hmm.
teachers only complain about things with the leaders
Hmm.
or the school board.
But not with the kids.
With the naughty kids, yeah, they sometimes aggressive with them.
Hmm.
Yeah. Sometimes I see that they 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 seems to be like joke or do some
Hmm.
funny things, but I don't
Hmm.
like it. For example, they hold the student's collar,
Hmm.
uh,
Oh,
yeah, in a funny face, but I don't think that.
it's inappropriate, at least from our perspective. Oh, she left. Oh, okay. Well, she did that monologue and then she just left. She dropped the mic. Okay. Let's go through this sample answer again. And the focus is, of course, on making sure that you're stretching the words out. Um, um, I feel like Hian has already got this on lock, so I need someone else. Phương has already done it. Thai is also making improvement. So Quân again, I guess. So the subject I'm going to talk about is science.
So the subject I will want to talk about is science, to be honest. When I was in primary school, I wasn't too fond of this subject, as it wasn't kind of like an important one. So I spent a bulk of time on literature and mathematics.
Stop.
But
That was too reading. Um, I think at this point you should know that it's not about reading the script, it's about delivering it as if you were speaking, not just reading. You don't have this type of fluency when you're actually speaking using your own ideas, right? So try to maintain a more natural speed from the top.
yeah, so the subject I'm gonna talk about is science. To be honest, when I was in primary school, I wasn't too fond of this subject, as it wasn't kind of like an important one. Then I spent a bulk of time on literature and mathematics. But in high school, things changed a lot because I had to choose three subjects which I would focus on to prepare for my university entering exams. So I chose science simply because I thought it would be easier for me to work with numbers than endlessly long literature extracts.
Hmm. So you kind of fumbled the ball at the last moment. Let's do it again. So I chose science simply because I thought it would be easier for me to work with numbers than, endlessly long literature extracts.
So I chose science simply because I thought it would be easier for me to work with numbers than endlessly long literature extracts.
That was not the speed that I was looking for. Again, when you sort of missed the cue here. When you speak again, you have to maintain the same type of fluency. That speed was virtually, well, it was possible because you were reading the words, but it's not possible in normal contexts. So I'm not quite sure what the purpose of, accelerating was, because it would not be possible in a neutral context anyway. Let me repeat it again. I'm not asking any of you to read my scripts for the sake of reading. I don't care about your speed. I want you to approach it as your own script. So slow down, essentially, slow down and calm down, and focus more on, making, I guess, um, like pronouncing words in a sensible way, chunking ideas properly instead of just zipping through zipping through the words. And also that's not a good habit at all, because speaking fast is definitely not a good sign of speaking fluently. You need to make sure that, you speak in a way that makes sense to the examiner. So if you keep on, zipping through all of your scripts, that's a very negative habit. And that also gives you this delusion of being genuinely that fluent on your own, when in actuality, your normal speaking speed is much slower, right? So yeah, I had to make an example out of him because he missed the mark more than a few times. Do that again. So I chose science and also slow down.
So I chose science simply because I thought it would be easier for me to work with number than endlessly long literature extracts.
Did you forget anything?
Number,
Numbers. That was an S.
numbers.
Hmm. See, that's a problem with speaking fast. I'm not sure if you actually missed the S because of the speed at which you were speaking. But essentially, what I'm trying to say is that, when you repeat what you say, the focus is on making sure that you reduce unnecessary ums and uhs, and you get all of the ending sounds all the way out. It's not a test of your speaking speed. Your speed is fine. I've not complained about anybody's speed around here. Okay, anyway, so this is the first part. We need to go to the second part, and then the focus is on how the ideas are connected. All right. So we need someone who is fluent here. Well, everybody here is fluent. Let's start with Hian. You're gonna go from here to here, and Nhung, you're gonna go from here to here. Right? Now, Hian.
I had lovely teachers who taught me chemistry and physics, which were pretty challenging for most students. What struck a chord with me about them
A
was the
chord,
fact that
a
a
chord.
chord, a chord, okay, let me do that again.
Yeah.
I had lovely teachers who taught me chemistry and physics, which were pretty challenging for most students. What struck a chord with me about them was the fact that they were full of personality. So even when the lessons were hard to understand, I still looked forward to the lessons, and that gave me a strong sense of motivation. I didn't hit the ground running though. Science subjects in general were complicated because there were many formulae which I couldn't make head or tail of. So I did struggle, but not for lack of trying. And after 2 months with a lot of struggles, I kind of hit my stride and things started to make sense. There was quite a steep learning curve though, connecting the dots and wrapping my head around abstract theories.
Mm.
I learned a lot of things from the atomic theory to kinematics. Interesting stuff with scary names. As far as testing was concerned, I think I I think I hit the nail on the head for the first time in the end of term tests. Personally, I grew to like science because I was able to find my groove. As I learned the subjects, I also improved my logical thinking and overall knowledge. And the teachers that I've mentioned also had a profound impact on me.
Hmm. Both of you were very ready. Hmm. Well, first of all, Nyum, I do think that well, I did complain with Guan about the fact that he was speeding for no reason, but you slowed down for no reason as well. I mean, there were clearly certain parts. There were parts where you were able to where you could have just, gone through with a, slightly faster pace. And just because you have to pronounce words clearly, it doesn't mean that you have to stretch all the words out. So that was a very out of the ordinary thing for you to do. I mean, sort of backfired. The script kind of felt sluggish, right? Oh. And as for Hian, hmm, for some reason I felt like it was ready because there was certain parts where there was, an emotional aspect to, the words. For instance, this part here. Um, so even when the lessons were hard to understand, I still looked forward to their lessons, and that gave me a strong sense of motivation. I didn't hit the ground running though. So there was a pause there because this was, as you can see, a rather abrupt way to, develop the speech, right? So there must have been a pause there, but you just jumped straight then to the next paragraph, right? And that gave me a strong sense of motivation. I didn't hit the ground running though. Science subjects in general were complicated because there were many formula which I couldn't make head or tail of. So I did struggle, but not for lack of trying. And after 2 months with a lot of struggles, I kind of hit my stride and things started to make sense, right? So the word "so" here, this is not a grammar word, so you shouldn't have said "so," just that. A grammar word is well, "so." It's a very short word, right? You go through it very easily, but like a connected word tends to be stretched out like that. So I did struggle, but not for lack of trying. And yeah, after 2 months with a lot of struggles, see that? There's certain words that we can go through with a slightly faster pace. And just because you have to maintain a high level of fluency, it doesn't mean that you have to go super fast or super slow, right? Okay, cool. Let's talk about the ideas here. The first part. Um, all right, what are the main questions? What the subject, who taught it, what you learned from it, and why you enjoyed it. Okay. So the first answer is, well, what the subject is. So what is the purpose of this whole paragraph? Chung, please, what is the purpose of this whole paragraph? To be honest, when I was in primary school, I wasn't too fond of this subject.
Mm, to talk um
What type
describe
of information is this? Is this a story? Is it, um, you know, just a tapestry of extra information, extra details?
explain about why we choose science.
So essentially, there's a story related to science, right?
Yeah.
So the original answer here is science. And well, if I think that well, most of you have already been exposed to some of my scripts, and I do think that a good start is always better than a bumpy start with a positive impression later on, right? So you can try to essentially display your fluency right from the get-go by inserting a mini story, if possible. Like when I talk about like Vian, for instance, I tend to talk a little bit about the fact that, she's a very celebrated athlete here in Vietnam, and the fact that like she has won many awards over the years, and the fact that, despite being, at the same age, she has scaled the heights, right, in what she does, whereas I'm still trying to make ends meet and things like that. So essentially a mini story if possible. Next then, the next part, next paragraph. Boom, please. Where is the answer and what is the purpose of the rest of this paragraph?
What do you mean the answer? Like
The real answer, like for instance, the question is who taught you the subject? So which part addresses that question?
the first sentence?
Lovely teachers, right?
Yeah.
That's it. Well then, what is the purpose of the
And
rest of this paragraph?
the rest describe the
Mm,
teachers, like their
description.
personalities
Description
and
of teachers. Mm, cool. Right. So essentially, no one actually asked about, what the teachers were like, but then you can take what's the word? What's the idiom again? Oh my God. My mind is not functioning properly today. Do you know that I slept like 3 hours before this class? So I had a meal at 4 o'clock, which was not exactly a good time to have a meal, right? I had a meal there, and then I slept from 4 to 7. So like my mind is not working well right now. But anyway, I guess what I was trying to say is that nobody asked for the description of teachers. But if you feel like, you know, it's appropriate, then yeah, you can just take the ball and run with it, right? You can describe what your teachers were like. Okay. Hmm. Let's move on then. The same the same question for all the other paragraphs. Where is the original answer and what is the point of the rest of each paragraph? Dai, please, where's the original answer?
Sorry, but what was the question?
The question is the original question. I wonder if so who taught it, what you learned from it, and who taught it, what you learned from it?
Okay.
Here. Where can I insert it? Here.
I think the first one would be the answer as well.
Really? What you learned from it? No, it doesn't make any sense. If you want to address the question of who taught it, well, I don't think that this paragraph addresses that question. So it's more likely to address the third question, what you learn from it. Hmm.
It's probably the second one, talking about a formula and something which is something difficult.
Formula, right? And then abstract theories, right? But as you can see here, we have it's more like a story, don't you think? Story of learning something. And do you find this familiar? Is a question. Do you find this script somewhat familiar?
No, I don't.
Of course. Of course. You were absent from a few classes. Anyway, so essentially, this is a very typical idea that I often use to talk about learning things. So I always start by complaining that I didn't hit the ground running. And then I would say something about the fact that, there were many parts that I couldn't make head or tail of, right? And then I would say, well, I did struggle, but not for lack of trying. And by that I mean I did try, I worked really hard, but I didn't make any improvement, right? And it's a very natural thing. You don't always, hit the nail on the head. Sometimes you make a lot of misses and it can drive you around the bend. But then you kind of just hit your stride completely out of nowhere. And then things started to make sense, right? There was quite a steep learning curve, connecting the dots and wrapping my head around abstract theories. I mean, this is a more like cognitive process. So you see more words about thinking and connecting the dots and things of that nature. But essentially, it's a very typical story of learning something, right? So I'm going to talk about the application of this paragraph later on. I learned a lot of things from the atomic theory to kinematics. Interesting stuff with scary names. As far as testing was concerned, I think I hit the nail on the head for the very first time in the end of term test. So, well, there are still like bits of information connected to the original question. Like, what exactly did you learn? Well, yeah, I did learn a few things, like kinematics and the atomic theory, right? But essentially, you have to extend your ideas, right? And personally, I grew to like science because I was able to find my groove. So this was the original answer. And then um, details, explanations, right? Okay. So when it comes to speaking part two, I think that essentially this is just the extended version of speaking part one. Like you address each question and then you try to extend your ideas in a way that would make sense, right? Sometimes you can provide like just background information. Like for Vian, I often talk again about how successful she is as a swimming as a swimmer, and then down here you can also describe people, essentially providing details, and you can also use typical ideas that can be used in multiple contexts. For instance, in this case, you're looking at essentially a story, a journey of learning something. I always say that, well, yeah, I did hit the ground running though. Like there were so many complicated formula which I couldn't make head or tail of, so on and so forth. And then further extensions. So I guess the bottom line when it comes to speaking part two is that, well, don't try to list things out, right? Okay, now one last important note here. A variety of ideas versus a versatile use of ideas. So I'd like some of you to cover the first idea again, and then there are extension questions. Dai, please, the first one. I had lovely teachers.
I had lovely teachers who taught me chemistry and physics, which was pretty challenging for most students. What struck a chord with me about them was the fact that they were full of personality. So even when the lessons were hard to understand, I still looked forward to the lessons, and that gave me a strong sense of motivation.
Okay, good. Um, Lovely pronunciation, by the way. Although I still feel like you would benefit from extending certain words. Not extending, but stretching certain words, right? So, um, read. Sorry, the question is, can this script here be used to talk about successful people?
100%. In my mind, 100%.
So the successful people here would be
Would be the teacher who can
teachers.
who can captivate the students' attention.
Okay, so for instance, if I ask you something like, well, describe a successful person that you know, then how would you apply this idea anywhere in your speech? Now, give me a demo.
Um, I think first I will have an intro to talk about who I'm gonna talk about, and then I will talk directly and use this script in the second part
Sure,
below
sure,
the
sure, sure, sure.
intro.
Give me a demonstration. So I'm going
Oh,
to talk about,
a demonstration talk.
yeah. So I'm going to
Okay,
talk about,
so I'm gonna talk about my physics and chemistry teachers. Do you know? In my high school, I had a lot of lovely teachers who taught me chemistry and physics, which were pretty challenging for most students. what struck a chord with me about was the fact that they were full of personality, and even when the lessons were hard to understand, I still look forward to the lessons, and that gave me a strong sense of motivation. And due
Hmm.
to their inspiring lessons, there were a lot of students who are not even in my class wanted to attend my physics and chemistry lectures as well
Thank you.
because
Thank you.
uh,
It didn't make any sense from that part. I mean, the mechanics were a bit off, but the first part was fine. It was a good introduction. That was a good demonstration. It's just that the extension afterwards didn't make sense to me. Let's move on then. Nhung, please. Thank you, Tai. So essentially, this idea here can be used to talk about successful people, as long as the people that we're thinking about or the person that we're thinking about is, our teacher, right? Next, then, Nhung, please, do you think that this script can be used in a conversation about a happy experience?
I think yes.
Hmm. And what experience would it be?
Maybe some interesting classes that you have
Hmm.
attended.
Nice, right? Give me a demonstration. So I'm gonna talk about an interesting class that I did, and I was really happy during that class, or something like that. I mean, that was a clumsy intro. Sorry. Yeah, it's the topic is describe a time when you were happy.
Yeah, I'm going to talk about a time that I had a chance to attend a very interesting class. So it was a science class. I mean, I could learn chemistry and physics in that class, and I had lovely teachers who taught me those subjects, which were pretty challenging for most students. What struck a chord with me about them was the fact that they were full of personality. So even when the lessons were hard to understand, I still looked forward to their lessons, and that gave me a strong sense of motivation. So during the class, I could also raise,
Done.
yeah,
Okay, cool, cool, cool. I thought that it was a brilliant demonstration. Thank you very much. I'm not quite sure if you have used up all of your luck for this lesson. If you did, then my apologies. You will be very unlucky tomorrow. Make sure that you wear a helmet when you get out of the house, and if you can afford an armor or something like that, make sure that you're geared up as well, right? Do you know what I'm talking about?
yes.
Yes. Okay. I'm not quite sure about that, but essentially, I'm very superstitious, and I feel like if you suddenly do something really well, like the stars are aligned, and you're having a good time doing, whatever it is that you're doing, chances are you're using your luck, and your luck is gonna run out in about 2 hours, right? So make sure that you go to bed, and then make sure that you have nightmares or something like that, so that you can sort of rebalance your luck deposit, right? I'm superstitious. I'm a science teacher at heart, but well, scientifically speaking, I've already got enough like empirical results to put my faith in certain superstitious beliefs. But anyway, what I'm talking about is that you did a good job here, and you knew somewhere here that, or maybe you didn't know this, but I felt like somewhere around here, you were kind of like off the topic, right? You were talking too much about, these teachers in general. But then you managed to reel us in by saying that, so during that particular class, right? That was a very good thing to say. Hmm. Good, 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 good. So 100% essentially. Let's continue. One last example. Chung, please read. I did hit the ground running though.
I didn't hit the ground running though. Science subjects in general were complicated because there were many formulae, which I couldn't make head or tail of. So I did struggle, but not for lack of trying. And after 2 months with lot of struggles, I kind of hit my stride and things start to make sense. There was quite a step learning curve though, connecting the dots and grabbing my head around abstract theories.
Kinda, there was a steep, not step, steep learning curve.
Steep, steep learning curve.
Mm.
There were
Okay. Um, let's have a look at the questions. Well, sorry, not questions, just one question here. Can this be said about learning other skills such as dancing, swimming, or do something or doing something that you're proud of? The first part then. Can this be said about learning other skills
mm,
like running
no, because running.
or dancing and swimming? Yes or no?
I think no.
Hmm. But then, if you can remove some of the words here, do you think that you can make the script work?
Um, because there were many fun there.
You don't have to use all the words here, though. The storyline is that you did hit the ground running. Something was really hard. You struggled, not for lack of trying, and then you sort of hit your stride and
Yes,
become.
yes, yes.
Okay, sure. Then give me a demonstration.
Like,
Let's talk
well,
about swimming then.
when I first,
So yeah, so you can say something like, "Well, I'm going to talk about the time when I learned how to swim."
okay. So I'm gonna talk about a time that I learned how to swim. Well,
Mm.
at first it's very difficult for me because um, I can float on the water and also, um, I don't know how to combine hands and legs to swim, and I couldn't hit the ground running though. But on the second lesson, things had changed. At um
Mm. Not quite there yet, and also your pronunciation was off again. Like there's always this very fine line between reading and speaking for you. Like when you read, your pronunciation is very clear, like crystal clear. But the moment you start speaking, all of the words are kind of just blended together. Think about this. Phương, then, can you give us a demonstration just to end things on a high note?
Uh, I didn't hit the ground running though. Swimming in general were complicated because I have to combine the movements of my arms and my legs, and which I couldn't make head or tail of. So I struggle, but not for lack of trying. After after 2 months with a lot of struggles, I kinda hit my stride and things started to make sense. There was quite a steep learning learning curve.
Curve.
Yeah, you still use for swimming, right? So
Yeah.
connecting the movement of the dots is okay, right? And wrapping my head around the the
No.
movements.
No, 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 no. So, apparently there are idioms that are popularly used to talk about cognitive processes, like connecting the dots and wrapping your
Uh,
head around something. Well, you cannot use these idioms in the context of swimming or dancing, right? And
okay.
well, if you want to use these idioms, then you have to pair them with things that can stimulate cognitive processes. Let me give you an example. Okay, so well, I didn't hit the ground running, to be honest. Like swimming was very complicated for me at the beginning because like when my friend taught me, he gave me lots of instructions which I couldn't make it head which I couldn't make head or tail of. You see that? So do you see
Oh,
that?
okay.
Right? So if you want to use this idiom here, can't make head or tail of, you have to pair it with here. Like my friends or my swimming instructor gave me lots of instructions which I couldn't make head or tail of, right? So I did struggle, but not for lack of trying. And after like 1 month of practicing by myself, I kind of hit my stride and like things started to make sense, right? There was quite a steep learning curve though. And that's it. I don't think you can use connect the dots here because again, swimming is a more like a physical process. It's more like a physical process, and you can't really focus excessively on the cognitive aspect of it, right? Yeah, so I guess towards the end, you would have to freestyle and say something else. Like there was quite a steep learning curve though. And I feel like, if I don't swim for a long period of time, I have to relearn it every time I start swimming again. It's just that the process um, takes less time to complete. You understand? Okay.
Yes.
So what I'm trying to convey through this particular lesson is that, look, when it comes to your speaking part two, my approach is not to group topics because I'm not sure if I have talked about this, but I tend to be very unlucky when it comes to, doing tests. Or maybe I have been lucky, it's just that I tend to take things for granted. But like if, let's say I group 48 topics together, when I take the test, I'm often given the 49th, right? Or the 50th, or something like that. What I'm trying to say is that I tend not to get the topic that I have already prepared for. So I have a different tactic, and I've been teaching this technique to students of different levels. Instead of grouping topics together, which is also a perfectly legitimate thing to do in preparation for the test, you can also essentially just prepare certain answers for certain topics, and then you can try to apply certain ideas in various situations. So for me, I tend to talk about learning something, the process of learning something. And my storyline is always I didn't hit the ground running, right? And then I would talk about what caused me a lot of problems at the beginning, something that I couldn't wrap my head around. And oftentimes I would say something about, the information that I received, right? Or the kind of the instructions that were given to me. I couldn't wrap my head around them, or I couldn't make head or tail of, what I was told, right? And then I struggled, and it wasn't for lack of trying, because I did try, right? And then, somewhere down the line, I just randomly hit my stride and things started to make sense. And I mean, all things considered, there was still a steep learning curve, right? So on and so forth. So I use this idea whenever I talk about like learning to do something. Like for instance, if I if I was learning science, yes, I mean this is clearly one of the scripts that I would use. And when I talk about dancing or swimming, for instance, I also employ this idea in a certain way. I mean, there's certainly phrases that would not make sense, right? But I guess the bottom line here is that when you prepare for speaking part two, and just speaking in general, it's perfectly fine for you to use the same idea in different contexts, right? Use the same ideas in different contexts. And the thing about this is that if um, if you do this, then you must be willing to, change certain details to make sure that it makes sense. For instance, At the beginning, I heard that Hyun said something about the fact that you sort of, a ball to take and run with. That's not how you use an idiom, okay? But then again, like it's already near the end of the class. I'm not quite sure if you can recall the detail that I'm referring to, but try to use the same ideas in different contexts. And you can ask me for feedback, or you can, use AI to help you with, the application of, these ideas. The point is try to use the same idea in different contexts. And one of the main benefits of this approach is that essentially you know what you're going to say, right? And because of the fact that you have already gone over, these ideas again and again, chances are you're going to be able to go through them with a higher level of accuracy, which is desperately needed for those who want to go for higher band scores like 7, 8, and 9, right? So yeah, that's all I'm trying to say. I mean, there's nothing wrong with, you know, um, being authentic and speaking completely off the cuff. It's just that, you know, when you do that, you risk making lots of mistakes, which is not something you should do in the context of a test, right? Try to be as accurate as you can. Okay, any question regarding today's lesson? Any question? Too many questions?
Dạ không ạ, cảm ơn anh nhiều. Have a good night.
That was a good way to tell me, Mr. Kwon, this class is long overdue. Let's just end it. Sure. Bye-bye then.
Goodbye. Thank you.